Japan is a country all of us kind of look at, with kind of rosy glasses, but the issue is it has been closed for nearly 2.5 years now, and there's no real sign ahead when it opens up again. We will still talk about the developments, how we got to the point, the current measurements, and possible dates where it might open up again. First, we should look at how Japan handled the pandemic up till this point, or at least until Omicron, which was basically like every other country. They closed down. Different to other countries, what they didn't actually mandate much aside from certain hours for restaurants and bars and social gathering type of stuff. They've gone till, if I remember correctly, it's around 20 o'clock. Aside from that, you couldn't enter Japan without exceptional reasonings, except from that you couldn't enter Japan at all, to be honest. This was until around Omicron, when all the other countries basically opened up halfway. You can enter, but only with a negative PCR test. You have to be triple vaccinated, maybe a test on arrival. It was kind of wonky with the start of Omicron, but nowadays it's only 3 vaccinations and or a negative PCR test. Japan, on the other hand, was still closed down completely. You couldn't enter in any way up till a few months, where special visa holders like working holiday visas, student visas, work visas could enter. Tourists, on the other hand, couldn't. Which the reason they gave is, they don't want unrestricted access, too many foreigners and whatever. At this point, most people didn't think too much about it. That was until Golden Week. During Golden Week, the issue was Japanese people ventured outside of Japan to other countries. They flew to Hawaii, to Europe, back and forth without any issues, restrictions or whatever, and re-entered Japan without being held up in any way, which was basically a really big slap in the face for foreigners who wanted to go to Japan as tourists but couldn't, while the Japanese could basically do whatever. Now you have a basically rough idea how Japan handled the borders up till this point. Now we come to the actual current measures, which are, just face it, it's kind of xenophobic, right? Demonizing foreigners in any conceivable way. First of all, foreigners can't enter Japan without a visa unless they have an exceptional reason. What are these exceptional reasons, you might ask? Well, I called the the embassy in Munich, the Japanese embassy, and they basically just said you have to do something that's for the greater good. You want to enter Japan for basically being a hero. If you aren't a hero and you want to enter Japan for what, and if you can't get these special exceptions. Anyway, at this point, around 4 countries can get in. It's the US, Australia, Singapore, and Thailand. Thailand, if I remember correctly, but only 50 people per month can enter. Yes, not per day, not per week, per month. And you might now ask, who are these lucky 50 people who can enter Japan in this month? Well, it's employees of travel agencies who enter Japan for whatever reason. Can only enter Japan as a tourist in a so-called travel group at this point. What are these travel groups? You're getting picked up from the airport. You have specific destinations where you go and eat and drink. You can't venture outside of these groups. and that's basically it. You can compare it kinda to like North Korea, like these North Korean style tourist groups. It's comparable in how they function, right? They try to minimize any kind of contact you as a foreigner have alone in Japan to other Japanese people. But this is not all. As a foreigner, you can't even use the public transport, even if you don't have, even if you lose your tourist group, because at this point Prime Minister Kishida restricted access to what's it called, to public transportation for all tourists. What does that mean for other types of visa holders like working holiday, student and working visas? They basically get screwed over, because for Japanese people, most people are just tourists. They so basically everyone gets carded all the time. You can't get a break as a foreigner in Japan at this currently. There are already people who compare the current state of Japan to Sankoku, which is basically the isolation of Japan, which was in the mid 1800s. And I personally agree to a certain degree. Regardless of visa status, all countries are currently grouped in 3 types of groups. The blue group, which is the countries from the blue group can enter without a PCR test at arrival and no quarantine regardless of vaccination status. For the yellow groups, you have to do a PCR test on arrival, but you can do your quarantine at your own home or accommodations. If you are vaccinated, you don't need a PCR test on arrival, and you don't need a quarantine. The red group has to do a PCR test on arrival and has to be quarantined in a government hotel. So they will basically picked up, what was it? I forgot which ones. You will see it on the screen, but they were basically picked up, tested, put into a hotel until the test arrives. Which usually, if they're doing it fast, it should arrive in around 5 hours. On another note, a week ago, Prime Minister Kishida basically released a statement where he said that foreigners have to abide by the Japanese mask wearing rules, which confused basically everyone, because as I said before, the Japanese didn't really have any mandate. No mask mandates, no lockdowns, no etc. So many foreigners are confused what that even means, and the Japanese are even more confused because they don't know if that just means that he will introduce mask mandates because Japanese rules and stuff, or that if he only wants to restrict foreigners with this. It's kind of unclear at this point. The tourism industry in Japan screams for for tourists to re-enter. JATA, the airlines, All Nippon Airways, Japan Airlines, even the whole city of Kyoto. Kyoto is so bankrupt at this point. A lot of stores in the main street that you think about when you think about Kyoto, this main old type of street, many shops closed down because a lot of them catered mainly to non-Japanese tourists, and it's just not feasible at this point anymore to they don't have any they don't even have any possibilities anymore. If this doesn't get resolved soon, Kyoto doesn't have the money to maintain all the old houses, all the stores, all this historic important stuff. Last but not least, Japan is in an awkward point. You might ask, when would Japan even open up with all this xenophobia, this demonization of foreigners? When could they even open up? I personally think the border measures are basically a political thing at this point still. The biggest voter base in Japan are old people, like really old people, because they are the people who mainly vote. Japan has a really low voting range. I think it's around 50%. I don't know, I will put it around here somewhere. But that means that Prime Minister Kishida wants to cater to them, especially because in July the new elections, the elections for this year will be held, and he obviously wants to be re-elected. So I personally think he would probably open the country after his re-election, like probably on the 25th of July he will put a statement that they may open up after Obon. Obon is ends around the 15th of August, which in my opinion would be the most logical time. Anyway, I hope you liked this small venture into the Japan travel ban, and I hope you get to go. I would recommend to not book any flights or something like that. Don't be a stupid ear like myself who doesn't really have any time aside from September. So I kinda already booked accommodations and flights. I can't really do anything against it. But for you, I would just wait till it opens up and book then. And even then, you should keep an eye out on how it progresses. This is all from me. I wish you a nice day, and till next time.